Ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to day 3, the last day of Asia Pacific Domain Name System Forum hosted by Maini and ICANN. Before we begin, we'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for joining us today and also would like to express our deepest gratitude to our sponsors for their continuous support for this event. As always, I'm Ameh for your MC for today. For your information, this is the first Asia Pacific Domain Name System Forum for 2022, and our theme is Beyond Technology, the Revolution of DNS, which will feature the multitude of topics discussing the role of the DNS from the multiple perspectives. Before we begin, we'd like to highlight that you can win prizes by attending the forum session. All you need to do is to attend all the forum session, engage with the speaker through Q&A, and visit your booth to collect the points. The top 10 participants who collect the most points will receive an Amazon gift card worth USD 50 each. Ladies and gentlemen, this session is entitled Real-Life Perspectives of the Regional and DNS Abuse in APAC. The purpose of this session is to share with the audience 3 informed perspectives regarding the DNS threat scenario, discuss method and technique to address them, and increase general awareness about them. Our moderator for this session will be Carlos Alvarez from ICANN. Welcome, Mr. Carlos. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for joining this session that we hope will be of interest to all of you. As Amir said, we will be sharing today 2 real-life examples from the field about DNS threats from the perspective of both JPCERT with Shoko Nakai and Spamhaus with Karel Bitter. Let's get started. So, Shoko, I will introduce you. Shoko is an incident handler and information security analyst with JPCERT CC. She joined in 2010, and she has been committed to providing coordination and assistance for cybersecurity incidents related to Japanese networks for nearly a decade. She has been actively collaborating with both local and global security communities. And for example, she is very involved with FIRST, the Forum of Incident Response and Security Teams, and does great work all around. The presentation that Shoko will deliver today for us will cover 2 case studies that illustrate how attackers use the DNS to conduct their attacks in really interesting ways. Then she will share 2 topics from JPCERT's point of view regarding awareness raising into very specific topics. The case studies that she will share will be specifically about a phishing attack and a more targeted attack. Then Karel Bitter, our friend from Spamhaus, he's head of data from Spamhaus, but I will introduce him and his session after Shoko. So Shoko, let's get started. Thank you so much for being with us. It's all yours.
Thank you, Carlos. Let's see my slide. Not yet.
The slide is there, so
okay.
We are ready to start. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Hi. Good morning. Good evening. Good. Thank you for having me today. My name is Shoko. Just Carlos introduced me. Thank you very much. My name is Shoko, and I am incident handler. Wait, is it share my slide?
The slide is up and we can see it, yes.
And no script there, right?
We can see the slide and we can hear you well.
Oh, okay.
Yes, now
I just make sure that there is no script on the share.
No.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. Okay, Lister. I just joined the JPCERT Coordination Center in 2010. So it's like a 12 years. So I have seen so many different type of incident. And today I will talk about DNS abuse. how attackers using DNS in cyber attacks and how they are and its subsequent impact. Okay, before talking about DNS abuse, let me introduce about JPCERT. JPCERT is founded in 1996, and it's a first sister in Japan with over 20 years of history. And JPCERT is a national sister of Japan and is assigned as the vulnerability handling organization by METI. It's METI and the Ministry of Economy and Trade and Industry. Although METI is the largest funder for us, but we stay non-profit and non-governmental and independent. Okay, next slide. This slide shows the 3 services that we provide. One is respond, what is called like instant handling. Actually, I belong here, and every year, and we receive from security incident from our constituency and search abroad to mitigate the damage of these incidents, and or to prevent further damage. We communicate. So we communicate in between, like those who suffering damage, and also those who actually can resolve the problem, like ISPs and also domain registrar and registries. And in case that we receive from the outside of Japan about the security incident, we also communicate with a national CSIRT of other countries too. And watch. We don't really like simply waiting for our security incident. So actually we do go finding information that might be related to security incident. For example, we monitor the internet traffic almost every day. And if we find a rapid increase in the traffic, so we suspect that there's something like attacking, like a DDoS attack, something like that. So yeah, the prevent. Now that's true. Prevention is as important as like incident handling and watching. So we handle the vulnerability information too. So in this case, in this way, JPCERT services rapidly in these two three, we can categorize that. Okay, on the next, on this slide, it shows the incident statistics. The bar chart on the left, it shows the number of incident records on last 5 years. So you can see that we received approximately 19,000 records until 2019. And after that, unfortunately, the number is increasing rapidly. And it's like a doubling from the last year. So we received 40,000 records. It was really tough. It's been keeping increasing. The pie chart on the right shows breakdown of the incident report in the last year. And you can see the phishing and scanning is the largest portion of report we usually receive from our constituency. Okay, let's go to the my agenda for today. I will discuss 2 case studies, and then after that, I will introduce our awareness raising activity for DNS security. Okay, case study 1 about phishing activity. This is targeting Japanese hosting provider. Yeah, before going into the detailed things, let me introduce the summary first. we received a phishing website report and started investigating because of the appearance of the affected domain. It was really unnaturally, really. So, and also the targeted host was under the targeted hosting company service. They use their client. And also when we asked the portal, when we asked the reported host, it was running a web phishing website. And also from the reporter, it was spreading phishing emails by compromising DNS information, like by adding the malicious subdomain, and also added the SPF record. I will show you later. And during our coordination among involved ISPs, targeted hosting company was also working on clean DNS information, and noticed that to the ISP, which was used as like a stepping stone to spread the phishing email. And unfortunately, the case of this incident, DNS abuse, has not been identified yet. And this is a timeline that we made based on the detection result by DNSDB. Yeah, in the slide in the red box content, it is from detection result by DNSDB. On the January 23rd, malicious subdomain was detected, and after that, on January 28th, also fraudulent text record were detected by DNSDB. So I think you see the the attacker prepared an environment to carry out their like a phishing campaign by silently, I think, and I think it's a really short period of time happened. And on this slide, you can see the how our phishing UI was set and what kind of IP address is allocated to the phishing website at the time. And upper phishing website information, and lower is the legitimate website. So, although the legitimate website is Japanese IP address, I think right now it's Japanese IP address still. But the phishing website was allocated to the foreign IP address. I think that this kind of situation, that means the legitimate web server has not been hacked actually, and the actual phishing contents that exist within the another web server. So if this kind of situation happen, I guess the web server owner, it's not really easy and immediately aware of this exploit by him or herself without notifying from the other side, outside. So let's dig into the DNSDB result. Okay, first, malicious subdomain. Yeah, you see the it's a result of DNSDB, and the malicious subdomain was observed from 23rd to 29th January 2022, and a record of the targeted host with foreign IP address assigned. And the next is regarding fraudulent text record. DNSDB detected fraudulent text record on January 28th, and you can see the from result of DNSDB on that order on the slide. The attacker added the 3 fraudulent text record in order to add the SPF record. So one SPF record registered a specific Japanese one IP address, and the others registered different prefixes of foreign IP addresses. So I think you know that from this kind of SPF configuration, it's unfortunate that I think because this SPF configuration was possibly against SPF rules, I think. So it might not be worked as purpose by the attacker, I think. So after that, we confirmed the DNS information has been returned to the correct management state. That was very good. Okay, case study 2. It's regarding about targeted attack and targeting Japanese cryptocurrency exchange service company. The summary of this case is that the subject company's name server information was changed. So that with that, some queries were directed to the incorrect route. And after they noticed this phenomenon, like DNS abuse, they worked to get back to the everything correct state, and also requested us JPCERT to take down the malicious name servers, or make it incapable of serving as an NS server. You know what? Because they just worry about the cached malicious information and the caching resolver around the world. So with that information, we started to check the current DNS information by Fluid's database and compare with the passive DNS server. Those are gathered by the DNSDB to understand that actually what occurred in this domain at the time. So as a result, the coordination, the review and the servers has been taken down and or been unable to resolve the targeted domain name. Okay, how to hijack? After comparing differences between the full S and the DNSDB, we noticed that the name server were changed. So on the slide, you will see the during the present domain stages, and during the hijack stages. On the right, the AWS DNS server's name are 2-digit number, right? But on the left, it shows that during the hijacking state, those were 3-digit numbers on the name server. You can see on the lower box. So attacker, I can tell that attacker intentionally registered three domains to carry out their operations against the subject company. So you know, this is very little changing. So it's very hard to recognize it at the first time from like a quick glance. Whereas, okay, and also there was Rogu MX server too, but now this MX server were under the subject company to avoid the further incident. So they control that MX server right now. Okay, on this slide shows that how we coordinated this incident toward the involved ISP and to ask for taking down, and also toward domain registrar to ask to suspend the malicious domain with together with this information like DNS status information, as well as the victims company's blog. Yeah, that's true. The victims company blog should be in Japanese, but unfortunately, some security researchers published this cyber incident, published this in English. So we can use this English version to explain that our story and this phenomenon story and the request was credible with that information. So we appreciated that. And the below is the list for our for any coordination list. Yeah, coordination host list. And 1 to 3 name servers, and 4 is MX server. So I just explained before, right now MX is under the victim's subject company control. So we just ask for ISP to ask for user to make stop in the using SMTP service on this IP address. Okay, then after coordination, this slide shows the coordinated destination list and the its result. In the software, I have presented 2 case studies here to illustrate how attackers use the DNS to conduct their operation and prepare how they prepare before an attack. And from here, I would like to introduce our awareness raising activity for our DNS security. One is the DNSSEC and the other is LAM delegation. Okay, regarding I referred to DNSSEC explanation from the ICANN website. So if we wanted to get more detailed things, please go to the website of the ICANN. So I can give you a roughly here. DNSSEC has two key points, like a data origin authentication and also data integrity. So DNSSEC achieved these two by building a chain of trust. So I believe that if DNSSEC were everywhere, available everywhere, so the internet users might not have to consider and worry about whether this resolved IP address is correct or not. And also they may be less likely to be attacked. I hope. Okay, I had a chance to discussion with regarding the DNSSEC dissemination with Japanese internet service providers and associated organizations like JPRS and JPNIC. And from having discussion with them, I just noticed that this is not suitable to consider on the domestic, but global scale. Like for example, if the distance between the authoritative DNS server to the full resolver is the short distance between them is short, the risk of the compromise will be reducing compared to the long distance. You know, because the long distance there will be many points to exploit by attacker to inject more some bad malicious record. So and also the internet is connected everywhere, any devices in the world. So I guess the with this notified with them. So we presented how important the DNSSEC is for the future and toward Japanese internet community with them. Okay, here is the DS record for rate for JP domains from 2019 to January 2021 has remained flat, but the following month increased sharply. Yeah. Sadly, I'm sorry, I couldn't find the current data for the DS rate in JP domains. So, but I can easily guess that the number of DS should be like higher and higher right now. But however, it's still much lower than that of the world. Okay, here is the validation rate in Japan. Yeah. Yes, although the number of validation is lower than that of the world still, but I wanted to tell that it has increased slightly, and I guess I think that we can expect it to continue increased in a good way for the future, like gradually, little by little. Yeah, in this slide, I just wanted to make the list make a list of the bottlenecks. As I told that before, I had a chance to talk with the DNS examination with the relatives like ISP and JPRS and JPNIC. It was like three years ago. So maybe it will be changed the status right now. But I try to make the bottleneck and there's some key points to escalate the DNS dissemination deployment without stress. Yeah, it was three years ago that we discussed. This is based on the 3 years ago the discussion. So perhaps the things have been improved right now, I hope. But about bottlenecks, I would like to raise the 4 bottlenecks, like a difficulty in understanding of DNS technology and fear of failure in the validation process, and also lack of DNS service provider due to low demand in Japan. It was 3 years ago, so it will be not same as right now. A human error in a DNS setting. And also I would like to raise the 2 points to escalate the DNS dissemination. One is introduced and entering the signing process. Yep.
Shoko, I'm sorry, about 4 or 5 minutes left.
Okay, I can do that.
Thank you.
Okay, and this is a LAM delegation. And for the past years, we received the LAM delegation status domain. And I think it's true that there are some cases that suffer domain hijacking due to another LAM delegation. So I would say that it may not be so many cases, but there is actual risk of domain hijacking in delegation consistency condition. And here is the as an incident handler, there's so many uncertain things to handle the LAM delegation, like the 3 points. And also I would like to suggest the some like a suggestion to avoid the delegation inconsistency, like our automatic confirmation process or third-party checking system. But it's like suggestion, so I'm not sure this is the right way or not. Okay, finally, as an incident hunter, I have seen so many DNS-related incidents suffer. So this is my opinion, though. DNS is just like a gateway for accessing the internet, and it's a fundamental. And I think exactly this is unconscious for most internet users. So it's very necessary to describe its importance and care always, I think. Okay, here is the email for if you have any question or comment, please email us. Thank you. Thank you for your listening, Carlos.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you, Shoko. It's really interesting. There are 2 questions, but we will leave them for the end, for after Karel's presentation. So it's really interesting, Shoko. I really mean it. I mean, the work that you guys do is amazing. So thank you for sharing with us. Now, Karel, over to you. Karel, his main interest as head of data at the Spamhaus project is the cross-section of reputation, DNS, and any data that helps in providing protection and context. Karel has over a decade of experience in domain name and DNS reputation research and presents regularly to audiences around the world. Karel is here with us today because he is going to share information from a real-life, currently happening campaign that's targeting Asia Pacific, and he will use that phishing campaign as an example to show how the DNS is used and relied on for successful delivery of phishing messages, and how a large number of domains enable filter evading behavior. So, Karel, as always, thank you so much for joining us. I know the timing, it's hard for you being in Central European time zone. So thanks, I appreciate it. All yours, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Carlos. Good morning, Malaysia. would rather have been there in Malaysia itself than here. A lovely country. Thank you for having me. And so let's see if we can get this started here. There we go. Can you see the slides?
Yeah, they're up.
All right, good. So I'm going to take a look at an ongoing phishing campaign that is really Asia Pacific centric and uses almost only Asian infrastructure to accomplish its goals. For those of you who don't know me or don't know Spamhaus, I've been working for Spamhaus for over a decade. Spamhaus provides real-time, mostly email, but also DNS filtering data that helps people to block bad emails, but also more on network level, protect users against bad websites or bad hosts, for example, phishing or malware, botnet command and control data, that kind of stuff. And as a result, that is in all those components, we focus very much on the DNS part. So there's a lot of DNS data that comes to that. There's a lot of DNS insight required for that. And as a result, I spend a lot of my time looking at DNS, and that's great because DNS is really a great way of figuring out what is going on. So for this one, this is something I've been tracking for a while. I haven't spent any time on attribution, so I don't know who the operator is, but they mostly target a Japanese audience and seem to switch between a whole variety of Japanese e-commerce websites. There's Amazon, there's what was the other one, Menai or something, I don't know anymore. Japanese railway company is frequently targeted. The idea being that if they get hold of people's credentials, they can use this either to transfer money into other accounts, or to order things from these websites, which then will be delivered to middlemen, so-called drop shipping, who will then forward it on to other people. One of the interesting parts about this campaign is the high degree of automation that's involved. And with that, I mean that these people use a lot of domain names, and to maintain that large number of domain names, they've set up a highly automated environment where it's very easy for them to switch to using new domain names, to switch to different templates. And the reason we can see that there's a lot of automation going on is that certain artifacts of how things are set up keep being repeated, and these are very consistent with the fact that the template gets made once, for example, for how a machine is deployed or how a domain name is set up, and this gets repeated over and over again, and only very tiny things get changed. And just the speed at which they can do this, I mean, if this would have been done by hand, you would have needed multiple people doing this all the time. Also, if you look at the times when the mails are being sent, when new domains or new zones are being introduced, this really indicates that a lot of this is automated. And as I will mention later on, that this actually provides for an opportunity for people who try to defend against this stuff. So a little over activity. I just looked at the data for March for this specific operator. So they've been in March using 13 different registrars to get their domains from. They use 5 different DNS providers to host the DNS for the domains. We've seen slightly over 6,500 unique domain names used. These are not all new for March 2022. They usually use around maybe 70 to 100 new ones every day, and every now and then they pick up some old ones they've used before. If they've timed out from block list, then they can often be used again. The domains are in 7 different TLDs. The mail was sent from 9 networks, and we saw 12 brands targeted. This doesn't mean that it's always like this. I checked only March for this year, so the last data I looked at was from March 25, which is 6 days ago. But in general, this is sort of the picture that's going on for this particular operator. The one thing that stood out to me is the large number of domains that's being used. Usually, most phishing operators go with a handful of domains each day, or maybe they'll buy like 10 or 15 domains in one go and use those over a couple of days. These people are really using a lot of domains on a very high frequency. I guess this helps them get what they want, which I will explain in a moment. So here's one of the examples. Unfortunately, I cannot read Japanese. I believe this one was for Japan Rail. I can't really tell if these mails are professional looking in a sense of how they compare to the actual mails from Japan Rail. One of my Japanese speaking colleagues said that the language used is not very great, and that to him it looks like it's probably machine translated. So it's with that, keeping that in mind, it's safe to assume that the actual operators are probably not in Japan itself, because otherwise the language would have been better. Here's another one example. This is one they do for Amazon. The call to actions are usually the same. They refer to something being wrong with an account, and you need to log in and correct the mistakes or supply additional information or things like that. Here's the last one. This one is for KDDI, which I believe is a phone service. I'm not sure. Anyway, the same idea. Usually phishing messages always present an urgency. They want you to respond right now because there's something wrong and that needs to be fixed immediately. So these are the sort of emails that are being sent. Now, if you look at this from a DNS perspective, then there's a couple of things that are not really, not like super special, but it's interesting to look at it in a way how to use infrastructure and domain names to accomplish certain things. So the first thing that is being used, so I redacted the domain names because these ones are live. These ones are from yesterday. If anyone's interested in the actual domain name, feel free to reach out to me, and I will happily provide you with enough data to spend some time on digging. So what is being used here for the authoritative name service are the name service either provided by the registrar where the domains are bought, or by an independent cloud DNS provider. One of the reasons why this is being done is that a lot of these parties offer API access to really quickly create new zones, to quickly edit zones, either edit zones in bulk or quickly deploy changes to many domain names, which is of course advantageous to people like this, because obviously they have to deal with their infrastructure being taken down on a regular basis. The machines that send the emails will either be blocked or be taken down by the ISP. And at that point, they need new IPs in there. They need to change the domain names that they use, they need to change the zones that they use. So having API access is really, or the way of automated access is really a good way for them to operate. Besides that, if you use your domains in a setup like this, you are sort of blending in with the good. You're part of the many tens of thousands or sometimes hundreds of thousands of domains that exist on these legitimate name servers, and you're people who investigate these sort of things. One thing that people often look at, and Shoko already mentioned DNSDB. If you use a service like that, you can see what other domains are listed on a certain name server, what domains the name server provides authoritative DNS for. And if you do that on this, you will find this, if you say, hey, let's see if there's more, you will find thousands of extra domains, but most of those will just be legitimate, and it'll be quite hard to figure out which ones are the bad ones and which ones are not. Another thing that is certainly not unique in phishing or unique to this specific operator is that the domain names that they buy are really don't really reveal anything about the phishing they are undertaking. So any names that are made to look like the targeted brands will not exist in the domain names. They only exist in host names, which means that at the time that the domain names are bought, it just looks like just another domain name. And there's a lot of in the anti-phishing world, a lot of research and investigation is done on domain names that look suspicious, that look like they have a well-known brand name in there. Most of the big brands that are being phished a lot have teams that proactively investigate these sort of things. And whenever a domain name pops up that has their brand name in there, they will say, aha, this is probably suspicious. And they will confirm that, yes, this is not theirs. Maybe even initiate a takedown at a registry or registrar. And by using domain names that do not have these brand names in there, you sort of get around that thing, and you use the host name to create something that sometimes sort of looks like a brand name. Like if you look at the top example, and it's a misspelling, but for a lot of people, I've noticed that for many people, especially people who are less technical savvy, they will not really see the difference in a URL between a dot or a dash or a slash, and they don't really often understand that if it's different, it means something different. It's hard for them to think that. And finally, another thing that is, again, certainly not unique, but worth mentioning here, especially for how we go on with this, is the fact that the names that the domain names that they use for the call to action, the URLs that you click on, the buttons that you saw in the email screenshots, those domains are different than the ones they use for the sending of the email. So what do I mean by the sending of the email? Whenever you send an email, you need to configure things like the from and the hello. Your mail server should, in ideal circumstances, have reverse DNS set up. And the domain names they use there are different from the ones that in the body. And the reason there is that these people are actually doing a whole bunch of things that they're in the right way, meaning that they are heavily using email authentication according to whatever what the best practices are these days. So they have set up SPF and DKIM and DMARC for all the domains that they use to get a better delivery of the emails that they send. These days, and it's interesting because all these techniques, mostly for sure, SPF has was invented to prevent phishing, to make sure that a domain can, using DNS, declare what IPs are allowed to send mail on its behalf, and it's a really successful system. I mean, if you want to send email on a regular basis, if you want to do it right, then you are required to use SPF. Basically, many ISPs will just not accept your mail if you don't have SPF configured correctly. DKIM is has a similar sort of history where DKIM allows you to cryptographically sign an email and publish a key, again, in DNS, so that the receiver can check that the contents of the email are authentic, that this email is really sent by you, by the person who publishes the key in DNS. DMARC, the last technology mentioned here, is sort of the closing gap between SPF, DKIM, and what you want to do with it. DMARC allows you to publish a policy on what a receiver should do if SPF fails or if DKIM fails, and how email should be treated. So for successful emails, and these are all techniques that legitimate email relies on heavily these days. If you are in the business of sending a lot of email, there's no way you can get that done without correctly setting up SPF, DKIM, and DMARC. And so it's interesting to see that for the phishing campaign to succeed, the operators of this phishing campaign basically do the same things. They're going with current best practices in the industry to set up SPF and DKIM and DMARC. So this presents us with some extra DNS artifacts. So if we look at look at one of the domain names being used, and again, this one I redacted a little bit. If you look in DNS, you'll be able to find extra information around this. So the first one, that's what in DNS is what SPF looks like. That's a text record. It declares that the A record of the domain is allowed to send email, that the MX is allowed to send email, and that is basically as in a soft fail on anything else. The second one is what the DKIM looks like in DNS. It's the P is part. It's the beginning of the key. The key is a really long string of characters. That is the public key for signing. It is published under, in this case, a host name of default, and that is specified in the email as what is called the selector. And then the DMARC policy is also published. And interestingly, so one of the things with DMARC you can do is that the P is the actual policy. So what should be done if the other authentication mechanisms fail? And in this case, the phishing people say, well, the mail needs to be quarantined, which is sort of the same as what you would normally want for mail to happen. So basically what they're saying is that if this phishing mail was not sent by our own phishing mail servers, then please put it in the spam folder, which is sort of interesting. And to get this, to enable to have this all set up, you need to control the DNS. You need to publish these text records for these mechanisms to work, which means that you cannot use the actual brand name domain names anymore, because you are not, obviously, those will not publish a text record that will allow the IPs under control of the phishers to send email. This is great. This is something that the internet at large has worked hard for in the past, I guess, about a decade. That it's basically impossible these days to, at a large scale, use the actual domain names of the actual brands to conduct such things. And as you saw in Shoko's presentation, what they did was they added an extra host name with an extra, they added extra SPF records into the real domain name through a compromise to be able to do that, to get their emails accepted to where they were sent to. So from a defender perspective, it's actually good. The brand domain names cannot be abused anymore in this way. But at the same time, this means that the miscreants need to have their own domain names to get the phishing going. And I guess this is both good and bad. It's good in a sense that it makes the bar for participating higher and requires people to buy their own domain names, which for defenders actually provides a lot of extra information. So a term that's often being used is DNS abuse. Phishing obviously is, as far as I'm aware, every definition that's floating around for what is DNS abuse considers phishing DNS abuse. So in that case, this is an easy case. These domain names are all considered to be DNS abuse, and as a result, it'll be easier for registrars and registries to take action on such domain names once they are aware of it, because they can say, okay, look, these are used for phishing and only used for phishing. So they are at that point, it becomes a lot easier to terminate the registration for that. There's another thing that is interesting in here is that is the volume of domain names. As I mentioned before, these people just in the last month used slightly over 6,500 domain names, and the reason for that is that if you look at how filtering works in general, a lot of filtering either in email or in end user security, like the browser security, like Google Safe browsing, for example, corporate firewalls. A lot of that is done on the DNS level. If a host name is considered bad, whatever filtering mechanism you use will say, okay, I will not allow this email to be accepted, or I will not allow you to visit this website. And a lot of that is based on DNS, on host names. So and they know, the people who do this know that they will get the names that they use will get blocked, they will get taken down, they will get if you look at how long each campaign runs for, it's generally the emailing is generally around between 1 and 2 hours, little blocks, and at that point they know there's no use to go on anymore, because all the majority emails they sent will not get delivered. So how do you get around that? Well, if you switch to a different domain name that you haven't used before and you send these from a different IP, it's like you're brand new. You can well, not send the exact same content, but you can send largely the same content, and it's like you're suddenly a new person as seen from the filtering perspective. So having a lot of domain names allows these people to keep rotating their identity and to keep going on with the sending of a phishing email. So made a little graph of the amount of domain names being used today. So if you look at the end, it's a lot higher than earlier on. This is over a 2-week period. That is because there's the ones that are in active use are always a mix of new domain names bought like on that same day. The first time we see the domain names are when they are actually, when the campaigns start, and they also reuse some older domain names that they haven't used for sometimes 3 months, sometimes up to half a year. And at that point, they have sort of faded out from all the reputation mechanisms, the block list that people use. So it becomes possible to use some of these names again and to sort of leverage your previous investment in a domain name again, and you change the SPF, or you change the IP addresses that you use. And again, as I mentioned earlier, the use of cloud infrastructure makes this a lot easier because it can all be automated, and you can use the existing domain names again. So if you would extend this graph a little bit further into history, at some point it tapers off, and I would say there's probably around 100 to 120 actually new domains used every day, and the rest you see are ones that they still have, that still work, that are reused.
Got it.
So
got it.
As I said,
sorry, 2 or 3 minutes, all right?
Sorry?
2 or 3 minutes, so we can have a few minutes left.
Sure. Questions. Yeah. I'm almost at the end. So as I said, a lot of the end user protection that exists has a heavy reliance on DNS mechanisms. So being able to get new domain names in is a great way to make sure that you get around these things. And because in the end, with every new domain name you use, it really becomes sort of a new identity, and you can just keep on creating new records in the phone book and pretending to be somebody different every single time. And really, if you look at it from how do as an operator, a phishing operator like this, treat a domain name versus a real brand. If you saw what Shoko mentioned earlier, the actual brand names are highly valuable assets. Imagine if Amazon loses Amazon.com, it would be that's how people get there. So that's a really important asset that they will protect very heavily. They will rely on every method they can use to make sure that they keep control of the domain name, and that people can verify that information presented through DNS is accurate. At the same time, the people who are doing the bad things, they treat the domain name as a throwaway resource. They will know it will get blocked, it will get filtered, and as a result, they say, okay, the easiest way to get around that is to just buy a new one. And so they will keep buying a lot of new domain names. One last thing I wanted to add here is that, and this is not specific to this campaign, this is just something we see a lot in general, is that it looks like from the data that I looked at, it looks like that a lot of these domain names are registered with easily recognizable, I would say probably fake identities or very incomplete information. And that is something that is unfortunately quite common, but it's also something there where the existing rules already exist for in contracts with registrars, where it's basically usually said that the information that presented in WHOIS needs to be correct. And as a result, you wouldn't really need any new rules, any new laws possibly to deal with this thing on a larger scale, because you can say, look, this is, the information is correct, so we don't really need anything else. We already have a way to say these, things like this we can deal with on a larger scale. That is it. Like I said, I redacted the domain names. If anyone is interested in some more data on this, I'm happy to share that. But I wasn't going to do it in this because this is all live. This is going on as we speak, and possibly if you're in the right country in Asia, you might actually see these emails come in every day. So that was my part. Thank you for having me, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out.
Great presentation as always, Karel. Most appreciated. Thank you. It's really interesting what both of you just shared, Shoko and Karel. It's really interesting. It's real life threat research being presented right here to all of you. We have just a few minutes left. One question that I wanted to ask you, Shoko. I thought it was really interesting to see how the attacks that you have been, that JPCERT has been looking at, that you shared, leverage infrastructure, third-party infrastructure that has not been well protected, like hosting providers or domain names that companies left unsupervised. What would you recommend to hosting providers and companies? In 1 minute, very quickly. What would you recommend?
Okay.
What would you recommend to them so that
okay.
these things don't happen? Because it's bad.
Okay, just keep watching their domain and how the status of this domain information, as well as like who is information too. If they can do this, it would be great. But it's really hard for everybody to do this. So it would be great if there is a system like a service provided by the service provider, like a hosting provider. The client will be happy with that. Is that okay? So just watching the information. Yeah, keep monitoring.
Yeah, both your presentations reminded me of the Ghosts of Banking Past study that Richard Clayton worked on with another academic from Harvard. If anyone's interested, go look it up because it's really interesting. Karel, one question for you. What does it tell you? What can you say about the bad guys using SPF, DKIM, DMARC nowadays in terms of their
So what it tells me is that actually that, it's I would say it's good news actually, because it means that the rest of the world has said, look, we'll accept emails, but only if you tell us who you are, and which means that you can't really abuse somebody else's domain anymore at any meaningful scale. And to defenders, like us here, and to good people, the fact that they need to do this also presents a lot of extra information in DNS that we can leverage to say, hey, look, this is somebody else than they're pretending to be. And I think that's actually that's great for me as a defender, for somebody who tries to make sure that emails like these don't reach the people who they're trying to send to. This presents a lot of opportunity to differentiate between the good and the bad emails. I'd also like to add one more thing to the question that you asked, Shoko, is what can be done to protect from these things. I think it's really important that if you rely on your domain name or domain names for your business in any meaningful way, meaning that if the domain name would be compromised, if your DNS would be compromised, it would cost a lot of money. And anybody who does meaningful e-commerce definitely falls in the category, but many others as well. There are registrars who will offer you extra security features that make compromises like the ones that Shoko showed a lot harder to happen. They will offer you a much stricter security around the management of the domain name, and there's also a feature called registry lock, where you can at the registry level lock the name servers down and basically make it impossible for anyone to change them without going through a very lengthy and difficult procedure, which will prevent many bad things from happening.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you both. We ran out of time. I think this has been great. The opportunity of having you both sharing real life experiences I think it's really important. That's why we were really happy to see that it was possible to have you both give your presentations for the audience today. Thank you again, and Amir, back to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Carlos and the speaker, Shoko and Carol, for the very insightful discussion. All right, before you go, kindly fill out the survey that will pop up in front of your screen. As for further feedback, kindly fill out the form that has been provided on the chat box. And don't forget about the Amazon gift card worth USD 50 each that could be yours. For more details, you may visit apacdnsforum.my. The next session is on how 5G will penetrate the industry and accelerate the revolution of DNS, and it will start at 11:30 a.m. in UTC +8. We'll see you there.